Alright, hello everyone, Mark Sejan again, and we will follow with a UV layout and some painting and how to export and use maps in ZBrush. So the whole thing of creating UV is basically revolving around creating polygroups. So right now, if you see, this is one single polygroup. We have to split it up in order to have some control over the clusters. So by defining the polygroup, basically you are creating the clusters. Now, UVMaster is the plugin that we will use. And just a second, and let me drop it here. So basically that's what we are using first. But what we have to understand that UVMaster can do good things, but it's not perfect. So if you want to have a perfect thing, usually you have to go outside in a different software. But for normal workflow, it's absolutely great to have such quick tools. So let me show what this thing can do. Okay, so first of all, we need polygroups, and for that reason we need to turn off perspectivity, and Ctrl Shift is our selection brush, and the selection brush we are using is the select lasso, and we will switch between select track and select lasso time to time. Mostly we will use lasso, but here's the deal. Just to speed up the process and make it more comfortable, it's the best thing if you turn on config and just customize a little bit of user interface, because sometimes it's hard to switch between specific brushes, especially if these are not sculpting brushes but selection and masking brushes. So whenever you choose a brush, it will be automatically available, and now I will just hold Ctrl and Alt and drag this button here as usual. If it's disappearing, I just have to make it better. I have to drop it a little bit more with a more accuracy. So when you are using a brush, this is the indicator, but you cannot really drag and drop. You can, but there's no point to drag and drop the indicator itself because it will just open up the palette. But the actual brush icon can be found in here in the brush tool palette, and it remembers your choices. So this is why I find here now the select lasso. I'm using Ctrl and Alt and dragging and dropping it to the next. And just to make it an easier switch, I will put it in here, and it's time to go move on to the selection masking type of brushes. So Control Mask Pen, this is the default, and the other brush that we will use a lot is the Mask Lasso. Now be careful, this is kind of a beginner mistake if you are switching where are you? Mask Curve Pen, okay? The icons are basically the same, but it's a different animal. Mask Lasso and Mask Pen. Mask Pen, it's also a little bit misleading, the name, because it's like an airbrush type of mask, okay? So think of it, Mask Pen is the default one, alright? So I know beginners are confused with this. So brush, holding down Control and Alt and drag Mask Lasso, and for sure we want to have the Mask Pen as a standard. So if we have to switch from painting a mask to lasso a mask. Okay, now here's the other deal. Whenever you switch between those, I will turn off Enable Customize now just to gain some space. So whenever you switch to something that is not visible by default because you're not using Ctrl Shift at this moment, so it tells you that, hey, it will be only visible and only active once you are using Ctrl Shift key to get to the tool you want. And here's the deal. If you press OK, you will always see this pop up. This is just applying OK, I understand what you say, but if you say skip this notice, then it will be gone and you can switch from whatever you wish and it will not pop up again. And when you switch to select lasso will be at hand when you're using Ctrl and Shift. If you switch select track, it will be at hand when you're using it without questions. Same thing here. You will receive the control type of message. Yes, skip this note, and now we are good. Okay, so perspective is off, and I'm in the full left view, and symmetry is on. Okay, so symmetry does count with your selection. I'm holding Ctrl Shift, and Mask Lasso is my tool, so I'm switching to Mask Lasso and starting from here and trying to get to the details. It's not you can do it in a hurry, but it's not necessarily beneficial. So try to make it as nice as possible. Now here, it's just maybe by luck, but now this is a decent selection. What happens if you don't have a decent selection like this? Let me demonstrate. So you have, for example, you have missing parts, you have missing polygons. So I will show this. I'm holding Control Shift and Alt, and that is turning it to remove from selection. It turns to red. Now I have some missing parts. What to do? If I'm switching, Control Shift and drag, it will switch the selection. I can now use Control Shift and Alt and hide from this part and switch back. Excuse me, it's switching to English, yeah, and switching back, and now I have the head. Okay, so that's one thing that that we can use. I can press Ctrl W for this to achieve a new polygroup, but let me show you something else. What happens if we have a plus polygon? Let me invert and hide from here just to demonstrate this issue. So let me drag. So we have a plus polygon, then this is the easiest thing, Ctrl Shift and Alt, and just hide it away from here. Be careful. If you are, for example, if you're rotating and you're not in fully left view, side view, whatever, you can actually Ctrl Shift and Alt and hide away some polygons and creating a hole. Okay, so why I have a hole on the same side when where my selection was? Because I'm using symmetrical selection, and it's like a laser beam. Okay, so it's going through the head, and it will pick up the polygon that's on the other side, and it's running cross. So here was my selection from this side, and it's running through cross, and it's running all over. So this is why we have this issue. All right, be careful wherever you have something in question. Just don't forget to rotate around and look what you actually have. And usually if you're in the side view, usually you have a better position. So now I'll press Ctrl W and check everything is fine. Okay, so always go from the larger polygon groups to the smaller polygon groups. With the face, UVMaster has an issue. It's like a cap. So if we want to flatten it, we have to open it up. We have control painting, and control painting is working on certain areas, but it's not working on all the areas. It's hard to explain, and there's no just a perfect solution. You can spend some heavy time on this, but it's hard to find. So what you can do is basically split up a little bit more. So these polygons are not meant to be modeling polygons. They can be used for some modeling work, but these are not really that thought out type of polygons where you divide, you know, just the hands, just the forearm to make it move or something like that. These polygon groups are solely for UV mapping. So let me just isolate the head again with the Control and Tab selection. Now here's something that if you are using the lasso and you try to make the selection, this is what you may see, that Control Shift select lasso has a kind of a special feature that it can select a loop of polygons. So this is great if you're modeling some clothing, panels, whatever. It's a good tool, but it's not really useful in this case. So when you see and experience this, hold on Ctrl Shift and tap in here, and if you're facing on a polygon, then it won't be an issue. So let me get back my tools and isolate this guy again, Ctrl Shift, and just draw the ear area. Okay, so I'm gonna just go in here and select these guys. Okay, so this will be the part. And now I'm not 100% sure if it's okay or not. So what I will use Ctrl Shift and X to grow my selection, and Ctrl Shift S is shrinking my selection. So I'll grow my selection, and I definitely want to remove this part from here. So Control Shift and Alt and remove these guys. I also want to remove this area here. So as you see, I'm rotating in the 3D space, but I'm very careful that there is no object here on this area. There's no object because I'm looking on the top, so I can surely avoid any kind of a cross section. You know, this I can avoid it because I'm looking from the top. And maybe this should be excluded as well, and I'm pressing Ctrl W again, but here's the reason. The color, I don't like the color. It's not nitpicking. I want to make it something that's more different. All right, so a different tone, a different color tone in general. Okay, this is good. Now, something comes in my mind, and that is I wanna join these tribes of polygons. Can you see this is running smoothly? I want to make it neat. Now, how to do it is, again, let me isolate this. Control Shift and X to grow, and Control Shift Alt remove these guys, and Control Shift Alt and remove these guys, and it's just inverting. So if you experience that, it's just simply just go back again, and I'm pressing Ctrl W now again to make it, you know, different in color, and here we go. Great. So now it's a continuous thing. Ears are cut well, face is over there. Okay, this is great. Now we already know this Control Shift and X to grow things. Now if I want to select the arm, the easiest way, and sometimes sometimes the only way, if you have, for example, a special 3D scan or something that's already modeled cavity or thing, sometimes it's the easiest way to do it all. Zooming in, and can you see how the polygon loops are just not in line? So I'm moving the camera and then trying to move the figure until I get a right angle where I can simply select across the forearm to have a clean and nice polygonal selection. And the reason I like to do it is you can do it anywhere. So if you wish, usually the upper arm, forearm, around the wrist, you will find an area where it's just simply just nicely laid out, and Ctrl Shift X, and just using Ctrl Shift X and I'm holding it, actually it just runs up in the selection, and boom, there we are. Okay, these polygons, I want to make them include, so Ctrl Shift X, and okay, how to deal with this, remove from the selection here, remove these from the selection. So yep, slightly, and remove and remove. Okay, so if it's hiding away because I'm not touching any polygons, just don't freak out. It's happening normally, no problem. And gone like this, and just go back again. Okay, there we go. Something was off where I made my mistake. I made a mistake somewhere, certainly. Okay, I have to make a different choice. This is why you have to always check your work. Okay, now it's nice and clean. Great. All right, no sloppy work. So Ctrl W and tap to have everything. Great. And the rest is the legs. So zoom in, Ctrl Shift, and try to catch it in the normal round polygon selection, and Ctrl Shift X, and just go up. Oh, too much. Ctrl Shift S, and let me see it. That's perfect. Okay, so Ctrl W to have a new color. Yes. Oh, this tone is too much, too close to the arms. Yes, exactly. Okay. Yes, clear. Okay, so now this one is perfect. All right. This is the ideal time to just quick save. Simply pressing 9 to have a sure secure quick save. So let me go in here, open up the divider, and we need the Z plugin palette, and drop it in here and use UVMaster. And this one remembered some of the settings. So here we are. We have a UV, so let me just quickly delete it. I was testing a few things, but no. Okay, flatten. No UV. Perfect. Okay, so there we are. I will talk about this just in a second. So first of all, this is default setting. We have symmetry on and nothing else. Now here's this work on clone option. Work on clone is working if you, for example, you have a higher resolution model. You can copy the model without the resolution, and you have to have the base resolutions. Now here's the idea. You can then lay flat the figure and copy the UVs. Once you have the UVs, this is why you have the copy and paste, and then switch back to the higher resolution model and paste the UVs. In my experience, if you have any errors, for example, you have used live boolean, or you have used Dynamesh in some areas, and something is not welded together perfectly, or you have an hidden inside part or whatever, you may see it in when it's flattened. But let me just quickly hit and let me explain what's going on. So polygroups on, nothing else. I'll just turn this on, hitting unwrap, and see what's happening. We have 7 clusters. Unwrapping, and it's about 4 seconds. So it could be done in 1.4, 1.2, depending on, but I have a record running, and if I'm pressing flatten, oh, this is what happens. So something is off with the back, I guess. Okay, so as you see, something is really not working here for this guy. So let me go and unflatten and see what can cause the trouble. So what's going on with it? Maybe the polygroup here can cause issues. So I will select this polygroup, I will Ctrl-Shift-X, grow it with one step, Ctrl-W. Okay, I don't have to worry about the colors that much. So it's not nice as we have these jags, but perhaps it can help with the back issue. Okay, so now this flatten function is working, but as you see, polygon groups are updated. So let me go back unflatten and choose again unwrap and see what it does. Okay, so we have it. Let me see it flattened, and now it's working. Okay, so we have some issues like this. If you experience that, don't go too far. Just jump in, alter a little bit the polygon group, and you will get a result. And as you see, this is the face, and this is kind of a 3D view. It's not in a 2D like in usual UV editors and any other software. And what you have here is basically a morph. So if you have a mesh error, for example, you have an internal mesh that's causing problems, you can recognize it. Okay, we have some tiny parts floating here. Usually that's a sign you have a wrong teeth or something like that. And also to check if everything is working fine, you can use the UV map. And by default, this is basically the best presentation of UV as a concept as is. So let me switch on morph UVs. Oh, excuse me, turn it off and unflatten. And now morph UVs. And just zoom out, and this is basically what we have. All right, it's a pelt, it's a skin. So let me go back and show this to you guys. Okay, so here's it, morph, and everybody's happy. Okay, so that's the real deal behind morphing and using the UVMaster. And this is the reason why if you have to delete anything, if you have to modify something heavily, then you break the connection between the real model, the final model, and your UV flattened model as well. The other thing is, here's just, it's a kind of a technical stuff. So when you are in flattened mode and you save, this file is not, you may be not able to get back your 3D model as one. So whenever you save, even the quick saves are not working this way. So unflatten, and then you can save. Okay, so that's just keep in mind. The other thing is we should check the seams. Let me check the seams, Shift F, and this is where the model is cut up. Okay, so this is where the model is cut up. It's running across the cut inside the arm, which one is not that bad in this situation. What I don't like is this cut in the neck, which one is just pretty much annoying. Of course, there's no cut in here because it's a single piece and it's added well. Now we will give it a try to make the torso as one piece and not cut in half. So how to do it? Let me check seams, turn it off, enable control painting, and we have a BPA painting brush, RGB on, no modeling, and attract is turned on. So attract is basically the color, the blue tells the software, okay, split this up here. So I will start painting this area, rough, symmetries on, and just cut it through here. And of course we want to make sure that this is cutting in here. And if we are using this method, we also have to cut around the arms, the armpits, okay? But here, this way, there is no visible thing in the front. All right, so that is the goal of this type of thing. Now, what we had before, so let me turn this off. What we had before is this, so two parts, unflattened. Enable control painting, now it will be visible. Attract is there, so it's visible, and I'm using unwrap UV and see what happens. So it calculates, there you go, and hit flatten, and as you see, now this is one single piece. Okay, so that is the goal. Then we can avoid seams and unflatten, and if we want to check it, check seams, and the seams are exactly where I wanted to have them. Okay, if we are talking about hands, what to do, so let me go and attract. And for the hands, usually the best option if you're running in the back, and I'm not sure if it will work perfectly fine. The lazy mouse is turned on, so turned off, excuse me. So in my case, L is the hotkey for lazy mouse. And if you see that your painting is not as fast or not as reactive as you see in a video, that may be that you are using the default BPA paintbrush that comes with a lazy mouse turned on. Now here's the deal. This buttocks, this thigh is always coming away. So to hide them away, I'm using Ctrl Shift, and we have polygroups. So now I can only see the hands, and I can work on those and start this paint. Let me just zoom in, and this area, there should be a paint in here as well. The reason is there's so many polygons, and if you're not allowed the software to open, they may spread in a wrong way. So now I'm just cutting in, let it open here, and cutting through, and cutting through here, and just going in. There we go. Okay, just do the same thing, cutting through. And again, it's a pretty fast thing to do, and you don't have to leave ZBrush, which one is in a concepting stage or just to have tests for validating a design. This is really beneficial. Okay, so I'm not talking about final production stuff, but this is for a very good, quick and fast, and with a reasonable geometry, you can do so. Okay, so let me just leave this and look at the legs. I think the legs are pretty okay by default, but let me just go and unwrap and see if the hands are getting any better. Oh yeah, don't be greedy. Okay, so here are the hands, and let me unflatten and check the UV seams. And as you see, the UV seams are running on the back. Okay, so now it's not that visible. That inside area is not that visible. The leg actually is this is the way I like to cut the legs. The only difference is like to make a cut in here to open it up a little bit more, and I like to make a cut in here to be able to unfold this kind of a cavity, this manifold area. Okay, great. Now it's time to check how the texture actually looks. If we want, we can go back to check seams and still check UV, morph UV. Okay, so this is decent. Okay, this is decent. So let me go back, morph UV, perfect, Shift F. And if you have issues that's too bright, I don't like the skin shade when it's white. It's a little bit too much contrast, so it's vibrating. I will just turn off this basic material. Skin shade is usually coming when you are starting using the paintbrush. But what else? So it's time to use texture. Let me just close it in here, and we need the texture palette, texture menu. Where are you? So drag and drop it in here. Well, we'll use this area, and right now we are just looking for a texture map. So let me just open a texture map, import, and I have 1K, 2K, and 0.5K resolution textures. I'll use the 1K resolution texture. In just a second, I will tell what's going on. And wow, look what's going on here. Nice. Okay, so at this moment, what we have to recognize first, distortion. So distortion, like how big a number is compared to another part, but because we have used UVMaster and UVMaster tries to make it even, we have no issues at all. There's no stretch, not much stretch. We have a stretch here, which one is quite obvious because we have the nose protruding from that area. Usually ears are stretchy a bit, but in this situation I think it's pretty neat. But don't ignore the obvious. We have the texture flipped. Now this one is flipped horizontally. So what to do? I want to flip it, but here's the deal. When you're using the texture map, this area is like a buffer. So that means it's not directly loaded in the texture palette. So I will just hit on clone texture, and then it will just load it up here and clone it to the palette to be used. And then this is the indicator. This is the actual texture. So if you want to actually select the part, you can go from there. And flip H is the horizontal flip, and I can flip it. Now, it doesn't automatically update. These are not tied too strongly. So you have to go in here and pick the texture and back again, just manually refresh kind of thing. And then it will just update and recognize that what's going on. Okay. It's a little bit, you know, at first it's strange, but then it's simply just tuck, and you're there. Okay, good. Now what else? This model is faceted. There is not much resolution. So if I'm turning on Shift F, you see the wires. Just if you have issues with that and it's hard to validate the texture because you have so many details, then you may find it helpful to press D. And D is normally to level up in subdivision levels. But if you don't have subdivision levels yet because you haven't created or don't want to, this is actually turning on dynamic subdivision. So let me hit on yes. And now we have a smooth model, and it's better to recognize, okay, textures are clean. You can find dynamic subdivision in this area, in the geometry, dynamic subdivision. This is on top. And if you hit apply, it will just apply actually the subdivided polygons. So you don't see, but in here, this is a 2x2. And as you see, we have control points. So we can actually move those control points. It's great for hard surface modeling, for example, and clothing and other things. So this is a very, very neat and useful stuff. And this value tells, okay, how much subdivisions you want. So in this case, I will crank it up to 3 and just zoom out. And this is super, super nice. If you press Shift D, it will just turn it off. If you press D, it will ask again. And if you hit on always yes, then it will just, you know, create it. So Shift D and D, and then you're going back Shift D and D. If you want to have and create real resolutions, you are using Control D to create a subdivided level, and then this geometry, lower res, higher res, the usual stuff will appear. So this one's just kind of like a subdivision surface or turbo smooth or whatever smoothing you're using with your application, with the other application. Okay, so texture is nice. We have a UV, which one's great. And it's time to do some painting. So first of all, don't get confused. I will turn off this dynamic subdivision, and I will turn off the texture for painting. The reason is we have two systems going hand in hand with many applications, but especially in ZBrush. ZBrush is is mostly for 90% you're using poly painting. Poly painting is a vertex paint in practical terms. So when you're using texture map, it's basically it's just display for testing out the results or creating your texture maps. But when you are dealing with the actual data, you are using vertex paint and RGB data tied to the vertices you are using. So let me just turn this off, and this is our actual model. If we want to paint on this, let me turn this off, texture, and I just want to start painting. So what happens here, and I'm starting painting, you may see that something is updating. You have to rotate your model if you don't see it as is. But I can't paint with resolution because the only thing I can paint is the actual, okay, so let me just turn off fill. Sometimes it's useful for painting. I will turn off fill, and that will hide away the color, but the lines are still there. So you can see that, okay, I can basically painting the vertex. And it generates a kind of a gradient from the vertex to the other vertices. Okay, but as you see, each polygon has one tone. Okay, so each polygon is basically a pixel. All right, so this means if you want to have higher resolution, you have to have more polygons. Now, okay, well, why not? I'm up for it. So Control D, and it blurs. All right, so Control D, it blurs. So first thing first, create your resolutions and then start painting. Okay, otherwise you will lose data. So Shift D, this is how it looks. D, leveling up, this is how it works. Now the reason I can use Shift D and D and it's not turning on dynamic subdivision again is because I have subdivision levels already. Okay, so I created the physical subdivision of the polygons. All right, how much is enough? So 500,000 for a full body? Not really. If you move it close, you can clearly see that there's no way you can paint a tattoo with this. So always think of that. So do you need a tattoo? Do you need eyeliners, whatever? Do you want to paint wrinkles? And look for the details. So this is what we can do. It's decent for a simple rough part when the model is tiny and you're not even rendering HD, but it's not really enough for more detailed stuff. Let me press Ctrl D again, and it blurs, but let me trust it now. So with this 2 million, I have a little bit more better density. Let me turn to Shift F, and this is also helping to validate a little bit better because the wires are throwing off the illusion. So as you see, this double resolution is decent enough. Okay. So especially where we have more dense areas. So here's something that you also have to understand technically. When you are using an animation type of mesh, your animation type of mesh have different densities around the body. That means from chest area, it's not as dense as other areas. And this is something you can work around, or something that you have to be used to, but this is how it goes in ZBrush. So if you have if you want to create a sculpting model and you want to use ZBrush for painting, then you may want to have even polygons, and then you're creating the new model, and the new model can receive the texture by projecting it, but this will be a different topic for a different class. Here, where we have really visually smaller polygons compared to the chest, here if we are leveling up, we can just paint with quite a lot of details. Okay, so it's quite strong because again we have decent sized polygons. Okay, so it's time to do something that's actually more fun. So color and fill object, I will use not this one, but I will use a simple white because that's the default color fill object. And here's something you also have to know, that this is the turn on and off poly paint. If you, for example, if you're using the texture map and turning on texture map, now it's visible. And sometimes you forgot to turn this on, and when you turn this to turn off the actual texture map. It's just you find, okay, where's my texture? Where's my texture? It is there, but perhaps you just pressed on the visibility icon of polypaint. Okay, so paint is there. Now, yes, we can paint like this, but it's just, you know, it will take ages. So first of all, level up and see what we have. And this is something that's funny, but let me explain what's going on. It's true for sculpting as well. So because we have resolutions, and I'm pressing D, and I made a painting, and I'm trying to clear it up, and it looks clean, but it's not clean when I'm leveling up. So each of the levels are saved as kind of a different type of data, and with different polygon numbers. And for this reason, when you have an issue that's running across the subdivision levels, you may have to find yourself that you have to clean up the things up, not this way. Color and fill object and D, and it's still there. So I'm cleaning this up. This is the power of live classes and demonstrations, that you can actually create some mistakes, and by explaining them we can gain more. Okay, D4, and then the fourth subdivision level, there's also some residue of this paint. All right, great. Now we're finally ready to paint. So the paint type, I will use a texture for painting. And okay, just what texture? Let me import a texture. Import, and I have a prepared one. I will use this. No, this reddish. And start dragging it out. But to drag it out, it's, if you're using just a simply texture and activating it as well, it would be a kind of a stamp paint, which one is, sometimes it's good, but not all the time. You can create some kind of ghosty effects. Wow, there we go. But if you want to have more control over this thing, you may want to find useful that this drag rect is there. And okay, I like this even on the face. Good. Okay, this one looks nice. This is a pattern that already has potential. So making a research, this is an Italian futurist painting, constructivist painters. You can find quite a lot, or science fiction concept art, or even industrial design, some pictures, architectural patterns, and things like that can do really well. Okay, so this is what I just did. Now this looks nice, but what happens if we want to have more control over stuff? And this is when masking can come in. So masking, in a normal way, it's like you're holding down control and start masking. Okay, I'm already using the mask lasso, but this is the default mask band, and this is what you do. So you're holding your masking, which could be great, but honestly, it's hard to create nice, clean edges with this. Even if you can go down with a lower size, you can give it a try, but it's just, you can see this edge, it's hard to control. Some more things about masking. Okay, so what we are doing basically right now, if I'm moving out, holding control, we have now the mask pan freehand, and that's for painting the mask. But usually it's better, and we have a little bit more control if we are using mask lasso. And I'm holding control, and then I can drag this as is. And as you see, the pattern is a little bit more refined. And don't forget, when you're holding control and you're holding alt, you can remove from your existing selection if you wish for that. Okay, so let me just, instead of having that, I would just cut a piece there just to have that a little bit of a different shape coming from the outside. We can cut through. Okay, so everything is going pretty well. Now keep in mind, perspective is still turned off for masking and other things. This is pretty neat idea. All right, now the typical thing that you use is blur mask and sharpen mask. If you're holding down control and tapping into the masking area, that blurs the mask. And of course, if we have a couple million polygons, it will be a little bit slower. So that is about blur. Please be careful, because if you are tapping on an area where there's no masking, sometimes if you have a pen error or something, or you're just not confident enough with the process, you may end up having a tiny barely visible mask dot there. So my suggestion is just keep it at the masked area, and this is where Control and Tap will blur your mask the best way, and you have no issues because there's mask already there. Now the opposite is Control Alt and Tap, and that is sharpening the mask, and as you see, it sharpens pretty well, so that goes pretty nice. So even if you have something that is not so clean and sharp, you can always use this sharp tool. And yes, we definitely have a mirror function, so that is working pretty well. All right, now before we're moving on and create more things, if you want to have a little bit more accurate type of dragging your stroke, what you can do is turning on the stroke lazy mouse. Now, because you are already using Control as a key and this one is active, turning on lazy mouse works best if you are just simply pressing the button and make your settings. Again, when you're just here and you press L, that will turn on and off lazy mouse. But when you're already using Control, that's an active hotkey. So let me just open up Divider and look for the stroke menu and drag and drop it, and holding down Control, and lazy mouse is there and lazy mouse is active. And now lazy mouse radius is set to 30. So let me just see how big it is. And this is a decent size. And okay, but in this case I have to just use the Alt key and remove. So this will allow to have a better control over the cutting. You can also add, so if you want to repair, that also works better. If you want to fix an area, that works nice. What else? So again, if you want to turn this on and off, lazy mouse should be here. Now for this reason, if you want to use it, and this is good for every brushes, and this is also an indicator, so whenever you don't know if you're using a new brush, that lazy mouse is on. However, you will find it out soon, but sometimes it's a good idea to have it this lazy mouse and lazy radius. This is the length of this overall feature, and as you see, it's remembering your brush related setting. Okay, now let me just turn this off and switching to BPA, and the BPA brush is not loading anything. I will just use now a texture. What texture for now? Maybe this one. Okay, I'm curious how it goes. Okay, this is decent. This is quite looking technical. Now, let me explain what my concern is. The main issue is, first of all, there is a resolution issue. As I see, there's not much of a resolution there, so I'll have to import something else instead of this. What else? And that is a kind of a technical issue, that how should I start outside the model. So please recognize that this is whenever you are starting with drag rect and using paintbrush, and you have to be on the model, otherwise the whole thing is not working. So I will keep this texture and hopefully the resolution will be fine. But here's a trick that we can use. We can go and insert a new mesh, a plane 3D. And the plane 3D is basically a kind of a backdrop canvas that could be used to trick the brush and make it work outside the mesh. Okay, so let me go in front and make this active again. And now if I'm starting dragging up, where's the brush? Actually, the model is there. So I can start drag from the outside. Can you see? So even if I'm here, I don't have to be on the model. I can be outside the model, and I can draw bigger sets. So I like this transition. Looks great with the model. Okay, so there we are. This nice transition is looking really promising for me. So I will just click OK by clearing the mask, and here we are. This is our recent part. Now, as you see, this one is just left blank, and I don't think it is a good idea. I'll try to make a color tone on it. So let me just go back, undo, invert the mask. Oops, invert the mask, but here when I'm inverting, I have to be absolutely outside the model. Okay, because be careful, this one is now a kind of an active plane, and I don't need a plane for this because I'm stealing color, and I will use a simple paint process to just add some tone. Let me turn off lazy mouse, and I'm just adding back some tone. I don't really want to make it super duper heavy on this, and just adding a tone in back. Alright. Yeah, we still need a pattern on somewhere in the legs, but this is basically just a rough kind of a biker suit, like a road racer or something like that. Okay, so there we are. Now what else? So this was the lasso type of masking. What else we can do? We can use actually the mask brush, the mask pen brush, because this is the airbrush version. We can also use this with the drag rectangle and calling an alpha. Now I'll use this star for now and start dragging. And as you see, the star shape it's easy to recognize, but the problem with that is it fades towards the edges. So to solve that issue, we should adjust focus shift. Okay, so I'm holding control, and when during holding control, I will narrow down focus shift, and then I will be able to start and drag this thing out. Okay, so that's how it goes. And hopefully, if we are outside the model, we can still start this star shape, and that way we can really create a big one. Okay, I'm not. Yeah. Okay. So this is better now. All right, invert the mask. Hopefully, invert the mask now, and sharpen the mask. Control and Alt, and there we go. Now, if you want to combine shapes, you can absolutely do it. So, for example, in this case, where's a dot? Maybe a dot, and want to add another shape here, maybe an overlap. So this is there's no real point in doing this. I'm just demonstrating what we can do. I will use Control and Alt and use that and sharpen it back. So now it has a little bit more sharpened, and we have this shape. Okay, now when painting, sometimes this masking becomes annoying because it throws off your tone. A few things to know about this. We have plenty of masking properties, and this is the view mask. Now you can turn this on and off. It doesn't mean the effect of mask is turned off. It only means that the visibility of the mask is turned off. So I would just enable customize, hold Control and Alt, and drag and drop it, because it's kind of cool to have it at hands. We know how to inverse, we know how to clear. Control A is mask all. Blur mask, we already know that. Control and tap into the mask. Control Alt and tap is to sharpen the mask. Grow mask, boost mask, these are not really part of the game. So these should be placed in here. So grow mask and boost mask is good. Sometimes when you're sharpening things, it shrinks, so this is why a grow mask could be helpful, and boost is when you have something that's not strong enough, not necessarily with patterns, but with sculpting kind of mask. Yeah, you can mask cavities and areas of the model, so then boost mask works a little bit differently but even barely visible, but the result is there. Alright, so I will turn off the visibility, and now if I wish to steal, I'm using C and start painting with a paintbrush and using it. And as you see, this is the mask is live and it's working. Okay, so we can move on here. That is about combining masks. What else? For sure, we can do color masking. So we can mask by color, and as you see, we have this mask by color and mask by poly paint. And from the poly paint, let me just zoom in and select the model. So I'm dragging and dropping it on here, and we'll pick up the color. Okay, what color we wish. This one. Alright, so this color will be masked, so I can click OK now. And visibility of the mask is turned on, so I can turn it on and off, and just to see, okay, these areas are masked. I'll invert the mask, Control Tab. So now basically the reds are available, and maybe a Control and Tab and just slide blur can help me. And for example, now I will go with a BLA brush. That is a layer brush, and I can lift up a few things. So that is maybe smoothing out, but smoothing, be careful when you are using smoothing. Smoothing has an RGB channel on, so it will smooth your paint as well, and not just the geometry. So that's how we roll. Okay, intensity is there, and some masking. Now, if you don't see the results, this is a reason why we have so many materials at hand. So first of all, let me turn off view mask to see the colors. If you want to see the true colors, you can always choose various models like Skin Shade 4. It's much more closer to the real life color. If you want to exactly see just the diffuse as a channel like thing, you can go with flat color. So flat color basically shows the pattern. Now this one's great if you want to, for example, paint fake shadows into your figure, just to save rendering time, or do some styling. This is great to go through and see, okay, I can put a shadow here, and that helps me the figure to pop, even if there's not much strong shadows all around. Okay, so there we are. This is basically the initial structure, and let me go back with a basic material. Something else that may be a good thing, it's a fast shader. Fast shader is somewhere in between the basic material. It's not as gray and not as super bright as fast Skin Shade 4. It's basically a little bit more relaxing to the eye. When you want to sculpt and see the painting all together, it's better if you go with something that's shiny, temporarily at least. And as you're rotating around, you will be able to see that, okay, I have some glossiness here and there. This is actually a pretty dark one. Droplet. These are not so. Gel shader. Yeah, gel shader is showing many things. So okay, here because of the masking, we have this kind of an indent here. This a little bit of a smooth can help us. So this is great as a validation tool to inspect your shapes. If you see, can you see how clean it is? This is going well. Here, this is not so clean. So I want to go in and smooth it out, and if I need to make a correction, I will do it manually and not relying too much on masking. Okay, so that's it basically. That was one way to handle things. I'm going back with the fast shader now, and also don't forget that we can turn off the visibility of the paint itself and choose whatever you have. And this is also a great deal to fix things. Now when you are fixing things, if you have higher resolution, Shift D will allow you to walk down, and if you want to drastically change things and smooth out faster a few things, then it's better if you do it in a lower resolution. And if you press D, then going up and make the smoothing, and then press D again, and in a very higher resolution you also do this. So be aware of the kind of a level and resolution cross work. Okay, so what you do on a highest resolution is not the same what you have in a lower resolution, and these are interacting, but it doesn't mean everything transfers the same way as you expect. So this is kind of a living part of the software, which one is good, but you have to recognize the powers and the way to use it. Okay, so what's happening if you have a model and you think you are done, or at the moment you want to transfer to another application and want to see and use it? So let me turn this on, and we have other models, but right now I'll just purely go with this one. So there's basically just the white legs and kind of this bicycle type of competition suit. So if we want to create the texture, what we have to do is first walk down to UVMap, and you can use plugins and exporters, but this is kind of the basic way, so I want you to understand how to do it and what's going on behind the scene. So right now we have a UV created. Of course, we don't want to delete. The default is 2K. You can go higher, and you can even go with 8K, but you have to type in manually. So for 2K is absolutely fine for now, and we don't want to delete or change anything like that. So texture map, when texture map is created, then you can create that when the model is on the highest level. So of course you want to see the full capacity of the feature, so every point counts. And we can go with new from polypaint. So new from polypaint, and it will just create this texture. So let me hover over here, and it will show it up in a little bit bigger. So as you see, this everything is done and created. So that's looking nice. Now we have to clone it. So if you remember that it's a buffer basically. So it is there, but it's not really enhanced. So what you do is clone texture, then it appears, you can select it, flip it vertically. This is coming from the UV system is flipped in ZBrush, and for this reason, when you're transferring it to another application, you have to flip the texture. So flip vertically, it will flip back, and then you can go and hit export, and just do it on what is it? Diffuse. Okay, so this will be the diffuse texture. JPEG will be just fine for now. And if we wish, we can check errors or something. This one is flipped, and as you see, it's pretty tight. It's not necessarily good to have that tightness. It's almost overlapping here and there. So I will show how we can fix it in just a second, but let me create this first. Hit OK. So how to fix it? Let me go and Shift D. Oh yeah. So this one, if we already testing out things, it's a little bit harder to fix. Then we can make a copy. So if you ever recognize this, basically this is what you should do. This is why we have the copy paste function. If it's okay, then you're good. You can skip this step. But if you have errors and you want to fix something, the way to fix this with the UVMaster is to work on clones. So make a copy of this model, and it will generate a copy with basically not much resolution. So as you see, this is a default resolution. We have the texture now. This is a little bit tricky because we just have created it. So this is why it's in texture map. We have texture on. Alright, but basically this is what we see, and this is the actual polypaint, okay, because we have no real resolution. So let me just hit on flatten and go with this and see what's causes the issue. So there's a bleed in here. So the paint is actually a little bit larger than the UV patch that we have, but just to stay safe, we can organize things. So I'm not flattening this. Let me just do this magic trick. So here we go. I will use W because that's a moving command, and holding down Control and tapping on this. Now okay, so let me explain the tricks. Now we have two models. So if I start moving, this is what happens, and we have symmetry also. Symmetry, I want to turn it off. I will just scale it down and move it slightly, and try to move them a little bit away. Okay, just a little bit of scale here and there usually helps. Control and tapping on the model is automatically masking the model. So now I'm just scaling to gain some room. Okay, this one is Control and tap and just move it away, and Control and tap and move it away. We can do more. Well, let's just make it smaller slightly. All right, so now there's plenty of room for errors, and if you want to manually paint something for whatever reason, this could be good. Okay, let me leave this. Control drag, go back to draw mode. You can assign different polygroups and go back. It will just revert back by the polygroups, but sometimes polygroups are helping to have more control on parts of the UV, but these are not kept if you do these changes in flatten mode. So let me go in unflatten and copy UVs. So now these are copied, if I'm correct. Yeah, I'll do it again and go back to the original model. So subtool, there we go. This is the 5th model. Here's the model that we have. Shift D, walking down to the lowest resolution and paste UV. And as you see, because I moved, the generated texture will fail to work. So I have to go back and texture map and generate it again from polypaint. But for that, again, going back higher to the higher resolution. And am I on the highest? D. Okay, I don't see the numbers because yeah, subdivision, updating subdivision geometry. And now again, new from polypaint, and then that's fixed, and clone texture, and just going back to Z plugin and texture and selecting this guy. This was the original, I guess. Yeah, but very tight. And this is the new one with a lot less tightness. So flip V and export, and I will overwrite my existing one. Diffuse, yes, for sure. Let me check how this thing goes. So a little bit of a troubleshooting was in too. It's not touching, it's just there's a bleed again on here. But if you want to do it for sure, then you can leave more room. A few pixels wasted. Sometimes it's better than having an error with a different application. Alright, so that is about the texture map export. The situation is a little bit different when you are trying to export normal maps or displacement maps. Normal maps are like, basically it's it can save the surface qualities. What to do for that? So normal map is if we have details like here and there, then we can save it and create normal map. Now yeah, high subdivision level is active. D, so need one more. Tangent, this is a default. Okay, adaptive is not turned on. Oh yeah, okay, so just let me lower down and create a normal map. Yep, the one that in mind. Okay, so normal map is here. Again, hovering over, and same thing, clone normal map, and just selecting this and flip and export. So we can choose basically a diff map and normal. There we go. Save. And to create the displacement, so what you have to keep in mind, if this adaptive is on, displacement map should use the adaptive as well. Okay, so that's kind of a rule of thumb. We have another option here. This is create display map, which was self-explanatory. But create an export map is it will create a model and export a map, but it's not flipping the texture. So it's good, it's decent, but it can only export a single mesh. In this case, it's no problem, but you have to flip the thing anyways. But you can go in here, turn on flip, and create displace map, and export the model separately if you wish, or just export it as is. So I will just export it as is and make the flip turn on. So I will just rename this to displace. And flip V is on, so it's calculating, exported successfully. Would we like to also export the base mesh? Yes, this is what we are doing. So this is flipped, and now we have the map with the folder with the textures. So when you're exporting these things, this is what you will receive. Here's something that you have to remember, that it will use the same name. So when we're saving displays as a map, and this is our goal, this is what we wanted to create, it will save it, and the OBJ is the same way, and the material is the same name, and it will save a texture as well in BMP format. So BMP could be good. Many times it's pretty high. So if you just want to use a simple thing, you can use a JPEG or PNG, that may be better, but this is the default thing. So when you're opening up this mesh, it actually will recall this a BMP map if you load it in another application. But if you want to do it manually, you have the normal, the displays, the diffuse, and the JPEG form or TIFF form, whatever format you wish like, and the model. Okay, if you don't want to mess with things, you can also do this export here, and that is just basically exporting the OBJ mesh in a different name. Or if you like to use the Z plugin and you have multiple items, then later on you may want to use the subtool master and export function to export visible subtools. Alright, that's it for today, and see you next time. Thank you very much. Goodbye.